morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome to another edition of the TCU Office of Admission Facebook Live. My name is Heath Einstein, and I have the great pleasure of serving TCU as Dean of Admission. And it is so wonderful to be with you all tonight. And there are a lot of people who have already logged in. So hello to Francisca from the Bay Area, and Christine from Denver, and Lindsay Ann from the west suburbs of Chicago, and Jake from Valencia, California, and so many other folks who have joined us. It's great to see people from all over the place. And what I love about that, seeing where you all come to us from, is how reflective that is of the geographic diversity that we have here at TCU. We have students who come to us from all 50 states, from dozens of different countries outside the United States, and it makes for a really thrilling college experience. We have a great program planned for you tonight. We start, as we always do, with a land acknowledgement, because we're in a very sacred space. Where we're located is the ancestral homeland of the Wichita and affiliated tribes, and so we are respectful and pay homage to all Native peoples who have lived here since time immemorial, and in particular, the Wichita and affiliated tribes. The next time you're on campus, please do check out the monument between Reed Hall and Jarvis Hall that designates that special distinction of our special place. Okay, so if you've been with us before, we've been doing these Facebook Lives for a while now. You know the routine. We've got a set topic that we talk about, and we've got about an hour designated. If we take up the whole hour, great. If we fall short of that, that's okay too. We hope you get a lot out of this time together. This is unscripted. And so I don't know what's going to happen. My special guest doesn't know what's going to happen, but hopefully you get a lot of great information. Go ahead and pop in your questions right now. You probably know that the topic of this evening is housing and residence life at TCU. And we do these Facebook Lives every month, and we always have a designated topic. And we say, if you have questions about anything else, feel free to throw those in the chat. And we always get questions about housing. That might be the most popular topic that we get. So I think that this is going to be an active session tonight. Before we get going, I want to thank a couple of folks who are working behind the scenes. You don't see them, but they are there, and they are making sure that this goes off without a hitch. And they are Rob Berline from the Alumni Office, Amy Peterson from Marketing and Communication, and Liz Rainwater from the Office of Admissions. So thank you three very much. By the way, you all are participating in an award-winning Facebook Live event, which that's right. We've won an education. Yeah, thank you, Craig. We've won an educational advertising award for this event, and so we're really proud about that. And it's because of you, all of those who participate month in and month out. Okay, before we get to the topic at hand, I do want to give you a little bit of an update of where we are in the admission cycle, and depending on what year in school you are, or what year in school your student is, you might be very interested to know this information. We are sitting here on May 3rd, which is 2 days past the national candidate reply date of May 1st. And we had a fantastic finish to our cycle. We have an entering first year class next year that is going to be numbers-wise roughly the same size, if not a smidge smaller than the last year's entering first year class in the fall 22. We have extended all of our offers. The students have responded. By now, you should have a good idea of where you're going. And I suspect that many folks on this call have already determined they're coming to TCU. And that's why they're here and trying to figure out what's the next step, which is one of the next steps is housing. For juniors out there, our application is going to open in a couple of months. I know it's crazy to think about, but on August 1st, we will open, which is now less than 3 months from now. And I suspect that we're going to have, probably the same questions that we've asked this year. We're not planning on changing the essay questions or the short answer questions. So go ahead and start thinking about that. You don't have to fill out anything now. In fact, there's nothing to fill out now, but think about who you might want to ask for a letter of recommendation, which teacher you might want to ask a letter of recommendation from, And you can start noodling ideas on your college essay, because the more you can get done over the summer, the better off your senior year is going to feel. Okay. I am not a huge fan of rankings, except for when they make us look good. And our housing is consistently ranked among the tops in the country. In fact, the Princeton Review says that we have the #2 ranked dorms in all of the land. And that is really cool. And that is in no small part due to our guest tonight, and the work that he and his staff do. And Craig Allen, welcome to the broadcast. We love having you here. Craig Allen is Executive Director of Housing and Residence Life at TCU. He has a very big job. And I'm not sure how Princeton Review does that ranking, Craig. I don't know if it's just because the buildings are really beautiful and the living conditions are nice. But if I were doing the rankings, we would be #1, and it would be not just because the housing is great, but it is because of the attention of our staff in your office, the resident assistants, the hall directors, and all of the programming that goes along with it. And I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about that. So, Craig, I'll throw it to you. You might have some introductory comments, and then we'll get to some questions. So
sure.
Go ahead and throw in those questions, and Craig, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Heath. Thank you, Liz and Rob and the team that's behind the scenes. It is my pleasure to join you on this award-winning Facebook Live. You know, I dabble in the Facebook Lives too, but I got to tell you already, production value here through Heath's team is just outstanding. So this is an honor to be on it. And I want to do a shout out. I saw somebody from New Jersey had joined in, and I spent 10 years in northern New Jersey. Exit 135 on the Parkway for my Jersey friends. They'll know exactly where that is. Yeah, I too am thrilled with rankings. I don't want to share the school that keeps edging us out. I'm going to take a trip up there and see what it is. So now you know they're north of us. That's all I'm going to say, and see what it is they're doing that we aren't doing. There are other metrics we use, and I do believe that we have an outstanding program here. And as wonderful as the facilities are, I would agree with you, Heath, that I think it's the staff and the attention to our students and the details that help us to be successful. So there's lots to get into in the housing, because the application opened, and I can share that on the first day that it opened, we had just under 1,100 students complete their application, which is exciting. We know there are many more who are working on it. And the great news is, and let me start with this, for all the folks tuned in, or if you have a friend who hasn't tuned in, please let them know the housing application is open now until June 1st. And so they have the entire month of May to fill out the application. Plenty of time. There it is. And so not only do they have all that time, they could change their mind on May 20th and go in and change something about their application. So students can log into it through the my.tcu.edu portal and just have at it. Heath, I do want to mention, in case there are any viewers who have very recently deposited, we have found that there are some students who may have deposited on May 1 or April 30, and their deposits, until they get updated into our system, it doesn't show them. They're getting a message that the application is closed. It's not closed. We just haven't caught up to that in what was an automated process where deposit automatically triggers access is now a manual process, and our staff will run that every few days and make sure that we catch any new deposits or any of those late deposits and get them updated. So the application is open. There are a lot of resources on our website, a tutorial for students that goes click by click on how to fill out the application. I would encourage people to look at that. And then really, I think for opening comments, I would just say that as important as the application is and getting it done, you do have the entire month. We don't want this to be something that causes any stress or anxiety. And then once it's done, you're going to get to come to orientation, go to a frog camp, and sit back and let us do the assigning, which is the part that is different this year. For those of you who tuned in and had a horned frog a couple years ago, or you have friends who have had frogs in the last couple of years, they would have probably told you about students choosing their room, and that is no longer going to be how we do it. Students will list preferences, including roommates and buildings, up to 9 preferences, in fact, of rooms and room types and buildings. And I'll talk more about that. And roommate preferences, and then we will do the assigning. So we'll take all that information and then we will do the assigning. Students don't have to be nervous or stressed about missing their opportunity to log in or any of that. We're eliminating anxiety, and we're just going to do it and send it out. And that's how the process will work. And then comes the exciting part of planning to move in and get settled in, and that in and of itself is an adventure.
I bet it is. Craig, there's so much for us to go over.
Right.
And so I think I want to start just by getting to some of the questions that were submitted. Some were submitted via Instagram ahead of time. Some have been submitted already here through the Facebook Live and through the chat. And so I want to encourage everyone to continue to do that. And we're going to get to as many questions as we can. So just to clarify, and Thomas George on Instagram asked, for first-year students, is the housing placement first come, first served? Or so does it matter when during the month of May the student submits that application?
It's a good question from our Instagram follower, and the answer is no. Placement is not first come, first served. Placement will be semi-automated, but it won't happen until all the applications are in, or at least all the applications that are completed by June 1 will get an equal shot at the housing that we have available. Now, it's important to know, I glanced over the comments and I saw someone asked about honors. Honors is if you are admitted into the honors program, the honors college expects that you will live in the honors hall. We sometimes have students who might say, well, what if I want to live with someone who's not an honors student and I want to live in a different building? You are welcome to contact the honors program and ask to be released from that. And you can do that. I think it's important for people to understand, first of all, Milton Daniel is an amazing facility. Mm-hmm. And I got to be a part of helping the redesign and remodel that building. So I am a little biased, but it's an incredible facility. The students who live there, as are the students who live in all of our buildings, have wonderful experience. And I really would encourage our honor students not to consider opting out of that. It's such a great opportunity. But if that's what they want to do, they can contact honors to do it. And we will then, with all the other spaces, it's an equal opportunity. We will auto allocate based on the preferences that people have given us. We will auto allocate people into buildings.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. JM staff asks, having trouble listing 9 preferences on the application for 4 roommates. What is your advice?
This is a great topic to start with, the idea of 4 roommates. A group of 4, if that's really what the students want, then yes, form a group of 4. That's why we allow it as a possibility, because we have some 4-bedroom suites in the commons. What's really important, and then we know because we've seen preferences the last couple of years, and these are Samuelson, Carter, King, and Wright, and also P.E. Clark. They have 4-bedroom, or in P.E. Clark, they're 2-bedroom suites with 2 people per bedroom. So we obviously, because we have that available, we offer students the opportunity to create a group of 4. It's certainly not necessary, nor is it my expectation that students should try to find a group of 4 unless they have a group of 4. And here's why. 75% of our first-year students, let me say that one more time, 75% of our first-year students are not going to live in a suite-style building, okay? So for those of you wondering, what are our chances that we will be in one of those suite-style buildings? The answer is 25%, 1 in 4. So because of that, if we have, and we expect that as many as half of our incoming class might preference to be in a Commons Hall or P.E. Clark, The Commons in particular, because they're single bedrooms, suite style. We know they're popular, but most of the students who preference it will not get it. And so it's really important that they understand if they list 1 through 5 are all those suite style preferences, knowing that more than half aren't going to get it, that means the next opportunity we have for auto allocating you is going to be to your 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th preference. Or if you only give us 5, then we're going to assign you wherever we have space available. So I think as we think about preferencing, it's important to understand, again, 75% of our first year class will live in a traditional double or triple occupancy room, common community bathrooms. That's where most first year students will live. So hopefully that kind of gets at the 4 is not necessary, but it is an option.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So many different things to consider. I think we call this strategery.
It is. There's a little bit of strategery to it, but here's the best part of this. I used this analogy recently and I've kind of fallen in love with it. When you think about filling out your housing preferences, I want everybody to remember it's kind of like saying, hey, we're going to go out and get ice cream. And you get to the ice cream place and there's like 20 different flavors you can have. And the great thing you have to remember is you're getting ice cream. You're out getting ice cream. We're not saying if you don't get vanilla ice cream, you get spinach. We're saying you're getting ice cream. It could be chocolate with sprinkles. It could be black raspberry. And if you're lactose intolerant, we have a version of that too. So you're going out for ice cream, folks. Everybody's a winner. It doesn't matter what building you're in. It really doesn't. They're all going to be wonderful. They're all great experiences. But people want to make preferences, so we allow them to have preferences.
You know, Craig, I love that analogy because it really is one of the major differences between TCU and some other places where, you know, there are college campuses, you know this better than I do, where there's like that one great residence hall that everybody's clamoring to get into. And if you don't get that, then you're really kind of stuck in a second class facility. And that's just not the case at TCU.
It just isn't. It's not even close. In fact, students, and I have been talking to a lot of students recently, one-on-one and in small groups about my doctorate. That's a whole nother story. And doing some research, and it is amazing and yet not surprising at all that I will talk to a student like I did last night who lived in Waits Hall, who told me that Waits was clearly the best building on campus, and she's so glad she got there. 20 minutes later, I talked to a student who lived in Shirley Hall who says, you know what, I'm so glad I was in Shirley because it is the best building on campus, and so on and so on and so on. Students who have these experiences, who live here and make friendships and see all the things that happen in their buildings will all at the end of the year claim that their building was the best building. And I think that's a good indication of what parents and families who are new at this now can expect. So yes, we're going to let you preference, mostly because people like to have preferences. Like I like chocolate chip cookie dough, but if they're out of cookie dough, I'm going to be pretty good with cookie two-step. And if you haven't had that Bluebell, I recommend it.
Okay, what it comes in cookie two-step?
Cookie two-step. It's cookie dough and cookies and cream combined.
Okay.
The people at Brennan, Texas are doing some great work.
My mind is blown. And we might have to stop this a little early so I can hit the grocery store. I'm just telling you tonight that I will be getting that tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
Thank you.
If you can't get the cookie two-step, I also sometimes like a Rocky Road.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good stuff. Okay, Craig, you alluded earlier to the desirability of the Commons. We'll have a lot of students we got a question that asked about the highest demand residence hall. Is that it? Is it the Commons?
And last year was the Commons. Yes. Okay. Students, and here's the thing. Of all the students I've talked to recently, I've not met a student in quite some time who shared a room at home. And so understandably, hey, I went to college a long, long time ago. And the idea that I was going to live with somebody who wasn't my brother, who I did share a room with growing up, was kind of unsettling and a little unnerving and felt weird. And even though I knew some people at my college, and even though some of our students know people, we all know living in a room with someone is different than just being their friend. And so and there's a word of caution in there about your best high school friend and college roommates is not always a good mix. But I think that that's part of the reason why the single bedroom in a suite sounds really appealing to people. I understand that, because there's this anxiety that comes with, I'm going to live in a room with another person who, even if I know them, that's just a different experience for me. I haven't done it before. But it is the experience that most of our college students will have at TCU.
Yeah. So Carrie DeLuca asks, when will students find out which dorm they are in? And I know you mentioned that we do these room assignments, and I can't remember if you said this already, but it'll be on June 20th is when
June 20th.
Yeah.
What's important, and I appreciate our viewer asking about that. I want to add the word that room assignments will begin to be released on June 20. So the reason I say that is because we will have most of them done on that day. And then in the days and week or two that follow, we will finish them. And some people will say, well, why would that be? Part of the reason for that is we have to allow for time for any student who might have access or accommodation. We also have rooms that we hold for our partners in athletics and ROTC and some of our scholarship programs. And so those beds might not all be filled, but we have to hold them out in advance. So we won't auto allocate all of those. And then we'll do most of them. And the last, we'll say 100 or 200 at the most, we will do then after June 20. But everybody should have assignment. You know, my personal goal is by the time you get to that July 4 weekend, unless you miss the application and you're late after that, but if you were in that initial students who've applied and deposited by May 1, you should have your housing assignment before the July 4 weekend. So beginning June 20, hopefully latest that July 4 weekend.
And this is just out of my own sheer curiosity. When a student gets a housing assignment, what information is provided? Like, are students encouraged to reach out via text, or do they get each other's home address? Or I'm thinking back to when I was in college and we got a slip of paper in the mail, and it had the name of the roommate and like a home address. And our way of communicating was like, I mailed a letter to all of my roommates. I was there were 5 other people. We were all squeezed in. And I remember when I got to school, one of my roommates said, "Oh, we thought you were the fat kid because you were asking who was going to bring the fridge into the dorm." And like, okay, like this is how we did it back then. There was no social media.
Yeah. I got I don't even think they gave us addresses. I think I just got their names. And then when I got there, I'm like, "Oh, are you Paul? Oh, okay."
Right.
So what we do is it's in the portal. We will send an email out saying your housing assignment is now updated, and students will log into my.tcu.edu into the housing application, and it will have an assignment update in there. So it's not so much that it will come in an email as much as it will be the emails will say it's now been updated. Please go see it. And so then the information, it'll have names. And, you know, I know enough to be dangerous, but I don't know exactly if I know it will have the names. I believe it will have contact information in it, but I don't know that includes an address. Usually it will have your roommate's profile is something you can see. So if you didn't pick your roommate, so if Heath, that you're my roommate, it would say Heath he gets up early, he's a non-smoker, he does this, he does that. And then it will have your contact information so that I can reach out to you and you can reach out to me.
Yeah. Incidentally, like you, I shared a room with my brother growing up. So going to college wasn't quite as difficult living wise, but still there's a nervous energy around it, not knowing the living habits of the people around you. Okay. Karen asks, will transfer students know about their housing? So can you talk to us about the transfer options?
Well, this has been a challenging topic for us the last few years at TCU. And I know, Heath, you know about that. We very much would love to have every transfer who wants to be on campus and provide them a campus housing experience. We know that that's not likely. transfer students are welcome to apply as well during this time period. They will not be part of our first round of assignments until we know that we have all of our first year students accommodated. So it is most likely that a transfer student would find out there initially, if we have something for them, I'm going to say probably a couple weeks or at least a week or two after that June 20, so that we know that we have all the first year students done. I will say this, I'm an eternally optimistic person, but I also try to be realistic. And so my advice for transfers right now would be to at least become familiar with the off-campus marketplace and see what might be available, apply for our housing, and then we'll give you an update as soon as we can as to how it's looking. I am optimistic that we will have some housing for some transfer students, but I don't know how many.
Okay. Jane Tracy Davis asks, what is the earliest date and time students may pick up items they shipped to their P.O. box in August prior to sorority rush? And I think it's probably worth mentioning that there are different move-in dates.
Yep.
You alluded to move-in earlier. There are 3 different move-in dates. One is for our international students. That comes first on August the 6th.
Correct.
Then the students who are going through sorority recruitment will be August 12, and then everyone else is August 16th. So,
Correct.
and you can see all of those listed here. So getting back to the question, if a student is coming for sorority recruitment, like, does that mean that they can pick it up on the 12th, or how does that work?
It's a great question. We'll talk a lot about this during orientation as well for our parent and families and students. But the early tip on this is that if you ship to TCU, which you can do as soon as you have a P.O. box, you have to sign up for a P.O. box at TCU before you can ship here. So once you are signed up for a post office box on campus, you can ship. You can begin shipping items right away, and you can pick that up whenever you get to town, assuming it's arrived. So if you ship something in late July and it's waiting to be picked up, you could pick it up on August 1. If you happen to be in town, or you can wait until after you move in. You can do it the night before you move in if you want, as long as the mailroom is open. And we'll have all their hours. Their hours are probably on the website as well for TCU Mail Center.
Great. Okay, Craig, you might know this, but we have a tradition on these Facebook Lives. We pause a couple times during the segment to do dad jokes. Okay.
Oh.
Have you been preparing yourself for this?
I have not, but
okay.
I'm going to go ahead and let you get it started.
Okay. Yeah. Well, no. You don't have to ask any question. I'm asking you the question, and we're going to see if you know the answer. Okay.
Okay. Whew. All right. In that case, I'm ready.
Okay. Good. Craig, how can you tell if a snake is a baby snake?
You can tell because it has a rattle.
There you go. All right, my man. Very well done. Okay. You win nothing but pride. Next question from Kelly Terrell Spieler. Are headboards required? And what about rental insurance? Is that required? Is it recommended?
I'm going to start with the rental insurance and say I highly recommend it. There's just, first of all, please don't send really, really expensive jewelry and personal items, reason for that. But students have iPhones and computers, and they do have nice things. And so I would encourage all of our families to check to see if their own policy might extend to their student property. That is true in some instances. Sometimes you might need to do a rider or whatever they might call it, an addendum to your policy. Or we do have a company, it's in the housing application. Students will see that as they're filling it out. And you can go look at that policy that company offers. It's a company that kind of has a branch specializing in college student room insurance. It's very affordable. We do recommend it. As for headboards, I don't believe headboards certainly aren't necessary. Depending on how the students choose to set up the height of their bed, they may have a headboard kind of built in because the bed frame itself is 5 feet tall. So if they set their bed at 3 feet, they're going to have a couple feet of headboard just because that's the bed frame. This is a good time for me to plug. I know that folks are asking lots of questions about mattress dimensions and bed frames and what comes in a room and how big is the dresser. Our website, we have virtual tours of almost all of our buildings. We're adding some that we missed in the filming last summer. But you can go and you can do literally where you stand in the room and move yourself around the room and see. There's a measuring tool to measure the size of the windows in different buildings. Now, obviously, you really don't need to be doing this until after you get your assignment because you don't know yet what room you'll be in. But what people will see when you look at all the different descriptions of the rooms and what comes in the rooms, it's very, very similar, except for those single bedroom suite style buildings. They have different size beds, different furniture, different room layouts, but the double rooms are very, very similar. They're all extra long twin beds, but please check out the website for those virtual where it's like you're standing in the room and you can walk through its actual video of the rooms. And I think those are going to be really helpful for folks.
Very good. Craig, earlier you used a term auto allocate, and AB Lashley is asking, can you define what auto allocate means?
Sure. So we will assign, let's say, we'll round up to 2,500 first year students, let's say, give or take a little, right? To do that one at a time or two at a time in the old school way, the way I did it when I came up in this field was you had everybody's things on paper, and then it was like putting together a giant puzzle fitting who goes where and writing them into a roster. We don't do that anymore. It's an all software system. And what auto allocate means is we add everyone's preferences in their application, and then hall by hall, we ask the system to go and look at all those applications, and we auto allocate people into the halls. So let's say we decide to start with Clark Hall. Our system will go, it will look at everybody's applications. It'll say, here's 2 people that want Clark, here's 2, and it will start filling Clark Hall for us. We will then stop, double check it to make sure that it worked the way we think it's supposed to work. And then we'll move on to another building and auto allocate those spaces and stop, check it. Now, before we do any of that, we have to manually set up our tables so that we know, that the gender is set, or that there are certain things that we have to make sure are set so that the system doesn't try to put someone in a room that it can't fit to. We have to make sure that all the triple rooms are set up so that 3 people go into them and not 4 and things like that. So we do all that. It takes our staff time behind the scenes. They set up everything and then they start allocating, usually hall by hall, and filling all the spaces, double checking it to make sure it's working the way it's supposed to work. And then eventually assignments are released.
Perfect. Jennifer Golden Hopkins asks, for the Honors College, does the student need to choose an alternate dorm on the app or just select Milton Daniel and then they're done?
That's a very good question. Typically, and I suppose I don't know how honors enrollment looks this year. I'm assuming they hit targets that they want. We have not had a problem in the last several years fitting all the honors students into Milton Daniel. So I don't anticipate that being a problem. It can't hurt to list halls after Milton Daniel, because honors, that'll be one of the first things that we allocate and assign is honors, because once they're all pulled out of the giant list of applications, then we don't have to worry about them accidentally getting slated somewhere else. So it can't hurt, but because if they're in the honors program, they are going to most likely be tagged and in honors hall unless the honors college has told us to take them out of it.
Great. Okay. Jennifer Athena asks, does each room have temperature control? Does it come with a fridge and a microwave? I know this is probably on the website, but since people are tuning in, what are the sort of standard amenities?
Let me give you a rundown. Standard amenities: we have beds, dressers, desks, wardrobe unit or closet. Most of our rooms are built-in closets. We do have some wardrobe units, and then micro fridge, so a microwave refrigerator combo in every room. If it's a suite style building, so for example, in one of those commons where it might be a 4-bedroom suite, It is not one per room, it's one per suite. And it's a little bit bigger than the double occupancy room model. But yes, we provide them. And because we provide them, we do not allow students to bring their own. And that's because otherwise we have circuits popping all over the place. And so the machines that we have are very nice, well maintained. And so students will have a micro fridge. And yes, they all have temperature control. And again, in the suite styles, the temperature control might be for the suite. But in double occupancy rooms, students will have a thermostat. It has a built-in range in it, and so they can't exceed or go below a certain number, but they will have the opportunity to move it up and down in that range.
Lori Meyer asks, if a student has approved access and accommodations related to housing, will you comment on whether the Office of Access and Accommodations communicates this to you, or does the student have to? How does that all work?
Yeah, Access and Accommodations works directly with us on this. So we will get from them any student who has an accommodation, and they will say, this student needs fill in the blank. And so what's important to know is what Access and Accommodations will not do is tell us where the student is assigned. We do that. They will tell us what is their need. So for example, if a student has a hearing need and that we have to provide a bed that has a bed shaker on it, they will tell us the student needs a hearing assistance and maybe a strobe in the room. And then we look, where that is, and then we assign the student to meet that need. I will just address what is sometimes the access and accommodation elephant in the housing room, and that is our access and accommodation is that we have to have a private bedroom. Students sometimes believe that if they get that, they will be in the commons because we have private bedrooms in those suite styles. That is not necessarily true. We have private bedroom availability all over campus in many different buildings. So it's very important for people to understand that an access and accommodations does not dictate the building. We do that based on the need. The other thing that people will say is private bathroom. Every one of our halls, this is really important, every one of our buildings has private bathrooms. The only difference is, are they attached to a room or not? Some are not attached to rooms, some are attached to rooms. Some are internal to a suite. But every building, including all of our community style bathrooms, are all private bathrooms. It's just like home. You shut a door, you lock it. There are no stall partitions. We don't have anything like that. All of our bathrooms are private bathrooms. So an accommodation for a private bathroom can go anywhere on our campus, any building. And that's a good thing because we don't want to have a building that becomes the access and accommodations building. We want students spread out all over campus. And the great thing about our buildings is that we can do that. And the last thing I'll say about access and accommodations is it's very important to understand an access and accommodation applies to the student, not to a student group. So if we have a student who needs a first floor private this with a bathroom attached, that applies to that student, not to the entire group. And so while we will try to honor roommate preferences, our first obligation is to honor the accommodation. And then if once we've done that, we can honor roommate preferences, we will. But those two things are not necessarily tied together.
Thanks. Okay. Pierce Barano from Houston, hello, Pierce, asks, what dorms have eating places or cafeterias, and are they open all day?
We have food service throughout campus in the Brown-Lupton University Union. Market Square is primary dining facility, and it's open 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, Saturdays and Sundays 9 to 9. We also have dining in what we call our Worth Hills part of campus, which is more retail oriented. We have Chick-fil-A, Union Grounds, or two retail establishments in the blue. On the east side of campus, we have a bistro in the library. We have a cafe in the business building. And we have a dining facility wildly popular called Shake Smart in the rec center. And all of those are take meal plan for payment.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Here's a really good question that I'd like to know the answer to. Karen Crowley Rodriguez asks, do the commons also have sophomores living in them? And in order for a freshman, or what we call first year at TCU, to live in the commons, does the question about interest in living with sophomore, junior, senior need to be answered yes?
It's a good question. The answer is that depends. As of right now, we anticipate most of the commons, if not all of the commons, being first year. It is possible, as our first year numbers and our applications come in and are solidified. I think what folks tuning in now obviously are interested in housing. About 97 to 98% of our first year students live on campus. There are students, Heath, you know this, the admission team knows, who are local, who will choose not to live on campus. And if they're living at home, then they don't have to be on campus. Anyone who's not living at home with their parents is required to be on campus. So until we know the exact number of how many of our first year students have applied for housing, I won't know the definitive answer to whether or not students will be in the commons with sophomores. It is possible they will be. That was the case this year. In PE Clark, which is in the Worth Hills part of campus, it is highly likely that building will be a mix of sophomores and first year students. The first year students would be in the double occupancy rooms, and the private bedrooms will likely be for sophomore or transfer students.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. Tom asks, how many students do not choose their roommate in advance? This is a question we get a lot.
We do. Tom, the answer is different for male and female students. Our female students probably have a roommate preference at a higher rate. I don't remember last year what it was. I'm going to say it's above 50%. I don't remember how much above 50%. And then for male students, it probably hovers right at 50 or maybe even a little below. I think it's really important, and I'll talk, you all are getting into some of my good orientation content, but I will tell you, since you've asked, that requesting a roommate, again, it is something we give people a choice to do because they want that choice. There are many institutions that do not take roommate preferences or building preferences for that matter. And we do. And I think that's a good thing for TCU. But I will say this, I don't want people to feel pressured to go find a roommate if they don't feel like that's a good thing for them. Every year we have roommate conflicts, and we're well trained and well equipped. I've been doing this for 30 years now. We always have them. There are students who don't get along, and we will help them. And I'm here to tell you, there's really no difference statistically in if they picked a roommate or we assign them a person as to whether or not that's going to happen. It really all comes down to students being willing to communicate with each other, compromise with each other. If they do those things, they will be fine, vast majority of the time. And so I don't want people to feel this obligation that if I don't find a roommate, I'm somehow missing out, or that I'll be treated differently in the process, because you won't. We will pair people together and then auto-allocate. So it does not diminish your chances of being in any one particular building. It has no bearing on that. So it's important to know that it's not required that you have a roommate preference.
I've heard you say that before, Craig, many times. And, to me, you're probably basing that off of actual data that you have, survey data. And it's corroborated by the stories I hear students talking about, whether it's our interns or by parents who come back and talk to us and they say, you know what, we were worried about it, but we didn't have a roommate selected in advance, and it worked out great. So yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Heath, let me just say, in the spirit of sharing data, parents, students, get ready to have your mind blown here. We this year because we had more students living in the Commons, first year students, than any previous year, and next year will probably be that same number or higher. We did a little research on our students and their academic success, and shocking number to us, because it's contrary to what we often hear argued to us, which is, I really need the private room so that I know that I can do well in school. Here it is. Students who lived in a single bedroom suite with other students, but in a private bedroom as first year students, statistically had lower GPAs, and it wasn't even close.
Wow.
Significantly lower than double and triple occupancy, which, by the way, triple occupancy, double, dead even. Statistically, maybe off by a fraction of a point. But single occupancy student, lowest performing academically.
Interesting. Wow. I'd love to dig in to learn a little bit more.
Not surprising to me, because I'm digging into the research of success and belonging and isolation. And what we see, it is so much easier for students to isolate themselves in their own private bedroom, not get resources, not know that other people are experiencing the same difficulties. It makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's somebody listening who's going to say, well, you just don't know my child. I guarantee they will do better if they have their own bedroom. And yes, there probably are some 4.0 had their own bedroom. But when you look at the number of students, and keep in mind, 75% or more lived in double or triple occupancy room, and they easily outperformed the smaller number of students who lived in a private bedroom.
Wow. Well, on that note, it's time for another dad joke.
You're right.
Okay, now you're 1 for 1 tonight, so I'm going to have to pull out a more difficult one. Are you ready?
Okay. Lay it on me.
Why couldn't the art dealer pay his rent? Why couldn't the art dealer pay his rent?
Not up on my art, because I don't know.
Because he ran out of Monet.
That's a good one.
Thank you. See, you liked it. You're gonna have
my father would have appreciated that. My father was a French teacher. He loved his Monet and Manet, and he probably knew the difference between the two. But I clearly was not up on that.
You're going to have to tell your kids that later. Okay.
I will.
Next, this is actually a really good and important question, and I'm guessing the person who's asking it, Jennifer Laboon, is a parent and not a student, although it's possible she's a student. Do all dorms cost the same? Do the suites cost more?
No, that was the one thing I was going to have at my fingertips that I didn't. Suite style, a single bedroom, does cost more. I believe it's in the neighborhood of $500 or so per semester more than a double or triple occupancy room. Doubles and triples are lower, but they're all the same across campus. Triple occupancy rooms, there are rooms where they were doubles that we've converted to triples. We will discount those if students stay in them for the entirety of the fall. We often see some students who might be assigned to a triple get reassigned either even before they move in or early in the semester. And so then we prorate and give them some money back when they move. But otherwise, students living in a triple occupancy room that was not designed as a triple, we discount those rooms even further, $1,000 off per semester from a standard triple double rate, which otherwise are all the same.
Great.
But singles are more, yes.
Yes. Okay. And that makes sense. Craig, Stacy Lamont asks, if you choose one roommate as your preference, what are the odds that another person will be put in there and you will be in a triple? And so I get, like, if we've got two people and they each choose each other, are they equally likely to get that third person as people who are sort of just, they've gone, where all three have gone in potluck?
Right. That's a good question also. And again, my answer will be, it depends.
Yeah.
It will depend on how many people are single, meaning they don't have a roommate preference, and it'll depend on how many groups of two or how many groups of four we have and where those twos and fours can fit. So yeah, it depends. I would say statistically, I don't think that it's going to be that much of a difference, because we'll also, we'll look at roommate profiles, and we'll try to have the third person would be matched up with two that seem like good matches, even if they didn't request each other. So that's a trickier question. My initial thought, based on what I know, how my assignments team is going to do things, is that it will not statistically make much difference. Mm-hmm. It's important to understand that the number of students in a triple room, it's also depends on, it's a difference between a design triple room. Mm-hmm. Those will probably first go to groups of 3, because we'll have groups of 3 as well. So it depends on how many triple rooms are available at the time and per building, based on who's a pride to be in that building and what their preferences were, et cetera. So it's a trickier thing than yes, no, but my initial reaction is it won't necessarily make a significant difference.
Okay.
But it might depend on the building, and it might depend on how many groups are available at the time we're doing that Sure. building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just for everyone listening, this is the science behind all this is it's an art and a science, because we're working with a great deal of unknowns at this point. And right. Even in admissions, where we think we know the number of students who are coming, there's always a gap between the students who as we sit here on May 3rd, have said they're coming, and those who actually will end up enrolling. Right. And so we just don't know.
Good point. And that's part of the reason, Heath, why on June 20, when we will release most of those assignments, they won't be all of them, because we have to hold some beds out of that process and wait. And we also will keep some beds available to us, because inevitably it is possible, although we believe that one of the benefits of us doing the assignments is we will have minimal human error, but there's always the possibility that there's an error. And in correcting those, we have to leave ourselves some wiggle room to make sure that we can fix those things. And so that's why, again, I want to remind some of you might not get an assignment. It doesn't mean that you won't still get your first choice building, because we'll hold some spaces all over campus to be able to fix anything or to make those last adjustments that we have to make. But again, the goal is for everybody to get that assignment hopefully early July. Mm-hmm. I would love to have it before the July 4 weekend, because then I know I can enjoy my July 4 weekend too.
Right. Okay. Francisca asks, can you elaborate on the laundry and dry cleaning service for students?
Yeah. Laundry, we have laundry rooms in every building. Some buildings, it's all on one floor. Some buildings, it alternates. But students will have plenty of laundry machines available. We also have, it's called Tide University Laundry. They've been a partner of ours for, well, as long as I've been here, 18 years now. And they offer dry cleaning. They also offer wash and fold. It's completely up to you if that's something you want to do. I find it really convenient. I use it for dry cleaning myself. But students can drop things off, pick it back up. They have trucks that come different parts of campus, different days of the week. And it's really just, it's an extra service. There's a cost to it. But for some people, maybe they don't have a car, maybe they just know, given their schedule, they're going to be busy and they want to have the flexibility to be able to drop off a load of laundry and know that it's coming back in 3 days and it's clean. So it's a nice service. I would encourage people to take a look at it if they think that's something that would be of value to them. But also understand that laundry facilities are available in every building, and so you don't need the laundry service.
Great. Okay, let's see. Jennifer Athena asks, do local places for dorm shopping give TCU students discounts? Are you aware?
That would be kind of neat. I'm not aware of, a lot of the restaurants will do, as Heath might know, we'll see each other Friday and maybe over at McAllister's, or Tuesdays for half price burgers at Dutch's. But I'm not aware of shopping things. We will send out information. We have a couple companies that we partner with. There's one called Dormify that does traditional hall supplies, crates for storage, a little bath caddy to take your things to the shower. They do linens and bedspreads and things like that. They actually do a lot more than that, but we'll probably students will receive information and families receive information about Dormify. I caution people against over purchasing at this early juncture. One of the wonderful world we live in where you can order something and sometimes it's delivered to you the same day. It's just crazy. That didn't happen for me when I was in school. I don't know about you, Heath, but there's really no reason to over purchase now. I mean, you need the essentials. You might want to have some towels and sheets and whatnot, but I really encourage people to think less is more. Bring what you need, and then understand that once you get moved in and you see how much space you have, or maybe your roommate brought something that you didn't realize they were bringing, or maybe you realize that the way you want your room set up, you don't need that extra storage crate. And so instead of having it and having to take it back, mom and dad, why not just wait and pick it up after you've moved in and you see what it is you still need? So I encourage that as much as possible.
Well, speaking of move-in, Francisca, and thank you for participating so wonderfully, Francisca, asks a really good question about move-in. How many people can a student bring to help? Is there a maximum, or can you bring the whole family?
Yeah. I recommend you bring everybody, including those cousins that you've always wanted to do stuff for you. But in all seriousness, I would say the average first-year student brings 2 folks, usually parents, maybe parent and sibling, maybe sometimes 2 parents and siblings, but it's up to you. There is no maximum, but understand this: you're going to be moving into a room. If it's a single room in a suite, your room is going to be about 10 by 10. If you're moving into a double occupancy or triple occupancy room, it might be anywhere from 170 to 220 square feet. So if you have your grandparents and your aunt and uncle and your cousin and your sibling, it's going to get really crowded in there. And in my experience, sometimes having a lot of people around adds to some of the nervousness and the tension. So there is no maximum. Bring who you feel comfortable and who you need. But remember, there's limited elevator space. There's the rooms are not ginormous. So you're not going to have too many people in that room at any one time.
Well, and just another plug for your amazing team. I always hear every year after move-in how incredible the housing staff is at assisting in the process.
It's a housing, TCU police, student affairs. On any one given day, it's well over a couple hundred people involved, and I appreciate that, Heath. Thank you. But it's one of the reasons why we're very tight about saying you have to arrive on one of these 3 days, and you need to come at your designated move-in time, which we will give students and families that information in July. So it's going to be one of those 3 days. We're going to give you a time, and please follow it, because imagine a day where there are 1,800 students moving in, and we just talked about how many people they bring with them, and the average is about 1.75 vehicles, and you can start to get a sense of just how chaotic that can be. We have it very well measured out and timed out, and it does flow very nicely. But the reason it works is because our Horned Frog families follow our guidelines, and we really appreciate that. That's what makes it go.
And it does require some patience from the families.
Does.
You might be sitting in your car for a little bit as you sort of inch along, but you'll get there.
You assuredly will. And the reason you sit at your car a little is because we can only unload about 8 or 10 cars at a time. So you're going to sit in it somewhere. It's just waiting to unload or waiting to get checked in. And so, yeah, you're going to sit for a little bit, but it's going to flow. And if people follow our times, and if they try to bring just one vehicle, that'll help too.
Craig, we have kept you for far too long. I know you have you probably have some doctoral writing to do, but Thank you so much. This has been really informative. I think the Office of Admission staff probably have to go back and watch this to make sure we get all of this information down pat. But I really appreciate your partnership in all this. So thanks so much.
Been my pleasure. I understand. I just want folks to understand. Last word comment is, we often hear and people, are understandably, they get a little nervous or a little anxious because this is a big thing. Students are heading off to college. We know that. I've been through that. And I know, we know, and I just ask for your trust. I ask for your patience, and know that at TCU, we are one of many departments that are here to take great care of our horned frogs. And we will do, just give us the chance to do it. And if something isn't going well, let us know, and we will take care of it. But no matter where you live on campus, it's going to be an incredible experience. You're going out for ice cream. It's going to be great.
Thank you for saying that. I'm going to hit the cookie two-step at Bluebell, and thank you so much. And thanks to all of you for viewing. We'll be back again next month with another edition of Facebook Live. And in the meantime, have a great night and go Frogs.